We haven't provided pathways through madness, and that's what a recovery approach does. It gives you a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and it doesn't give you a life sentence like I was given when I started using services. Madness is as legitimate experience as falling in love, grief, or surviving on a battlefield. And the other thing is that we need to derive meaning and value from that experience, and also to provide pathways through it.
In the old days, people had a mental health problem, developed a mental illness, would be put in hospital and often stayed there for many years, out of sight and out of mind. With new medications, with community-based care, we've got beyond that, we've got very far beyond that, and we can now really support people who've had quite serious illnesses to live independently in the community.
Some of the services that we run in the past, effectively what you were doing with people is that you were putting them somewhere, but actually they weren't necessarily doing anything, they weren't necessarily achieving anything, it was keeping something static. If you want to be blunt about it, you could say that you were putting people on a scrap heap.
I think if I look at my journey from 1990 to where I am now, I think that the word which I would say has underscored all that is hope. Those providers, service providers who would come and actually spend that quality time, or the pharmacists, for instance, who would say you see things differently. Just little words would make such a big difference.
We think people with a mental health problem have got as much right to have some help to achieve their aspirations as the rest of society, and to be valued and valuable parts and members of that society. So that's what we're about. How far can we push that concept? How far can we support people to be ordinary citizens again, in whatever form that means for them as individuals?
This is about providing support and services to people with mental health problems. It's about, from the council's point of view, it is about helping those people back into employment, making them feel as if they are worthwhile members of society, as they were before they had their episode of mental ill health.
Part of what we're wanting to do with this video is set some questions for staff and work with staff on thinking for them, what does it mean in practice? Well, people do talk a lot about recovery, and I think some people are getting quite cynical about it, but what does it actually mean in day-to-day work?
The perception of mental health is actually, there's all obviously different types, but there's people walking around in suits and ties, and there's probably members of parliament, probably footballers, you know, there's probably women chief executives, and anyone walking down, sort of just looking quite regular, who has mental health. And I think it just needs to be put on the agenda and just to be made more aware of it, you know, what anxiety is and how depression works and stuff like that.
There are examples all over the place of people who maybe were GPs, you know, had an illness, went back. City brokers, our colleagues, Jonathan Ness in Stand to Reason, city financier, had an illness, went back to work.
I got sanctioned for a breach of the peace, actually. The police came and surrounded me as I was leaving a coffee bar about 25 yards from my work in my pinstripe suit. So I'd been working that morning. People didn't really tap me on the shoulder to say, Jonathan, come on, we've actually noticed quite an extreme change in your character here over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. You've stopped listening to people. It was very noticeable how much I'd changed, but no one felt they could talk to me.
I lost about 2 stone of weight, and I was literally not sleeping, not eating. And then actually my first entry into the mental health system was via the police.
I have depression, and I think I've got a big sign saying it, and I think people can see it, and then I think people can see it, and then that makes it worse. It's that kind of thinking I get.
I think oftentimes that mental distress or mental health issues, oftentimes people try to make you defined and put a label on you, but I'm not really going to wear a label. It's an experience, and I'm only passing through.
I think recovery is about people being able to build meaningful, satisfying lives. And I think also, very importantly, it's a move away from pathology and illness towards hope, towards strength, and towards wellness.
Recovery for someone might be just managing to get out to the shops or managing to get out to go to a local pub. I mean, recovery for someone else might be getting a job, recovery for someone else might be being able to attend a self-help group. For someone else, it might be running the self-help group.
For me, recovery is recovering my dream, recovering my aspirations for life. I do need goals, but I need to define those goals.
There's a lot of service users out there, extremely capable people who can actually run their own services and who don't need staff to kind of give them intensive help all the time.
Staff play a hugely important role in helping somebody recover from an illness, and I think the single best effect that you can get is a good, trusting, honest relationship with a member of staff, and if that therapeutic relationship is good, then the recovery is likely to be better and quicker and more long-lasting.
I think we need to remember that recovery is an ongoing thing, and I always say I'm in recovery, and people say, you're an alcoholic. But I say that to make people think, actually, because what do I mean? I mean that I'm in work, I'm married, I'm happy, da-da-da-da-da, but I'm constantly working with my mental health, checking in with people as to how I am, and if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to, manage the highs and lows.
The whole idea of recovery is working on a one-to-one basis with people to be able to provide them with the support to be able to achieve their maximum. And that maximum for a number of people will be going back to work.
I'm an administrator in a court. I work in a fees office. So it's a public-facing office with a public counter. There's demands left, right and centre. Telephones ringing. And it's a busy place to be. My doctor actually wrote depression on one of my sick notes, and I sent it in, and the work didn't notice it. And then she did it again, and on the second time they noticed it, and so I got this sort of phone call about it, and I talked about it to Jobs in Mind, and they're saying what we got down to was, if they don't know about it, they can't help you.
Because legally it's up to the person with a mental health problem whether they would like to disclose that to an employer. Generally, because of the stigma at the moment, people choose not to because they feel they won't get the job in the first place. We need to move away from that so that people feel that they can be open, honest about their mental health problem.
I've really benefited enormously as a human being from being able to be open about my mental health.
This is important for you as an employer to understand that a number of people, including many of your current employees, may well have episodes of mental ill health throughout their life. Just because they have an episode of mental ill health doesn't mean to say that they're not employable.
I've been supported through my illness and then encouraged and supported to return to work and negotiate with work, and also I've had occupational health were called in, so again the job retention worker was liaised with me with that, came to meetings. We were able to talk about it afterwards and say, right, what can we do, what can't we do, was that right, is this going to work? But I felt quite anxious about doing it, and I had a couple of weeks where I felt very anxious and apprehensive about it and very vulnerable about it. But I would say it has benefited me, and I feel better being in the workplace knowing that is known and that is on record now, and that I have support with it.
Employers need to understand about mental illness, just like other forms of physical disability, that most people get disabled during their working life.
For most people, it's a temporary phase in their life. Sadly, it's not the case for everybody, but for most people it is. It's a phase, and if you work with people during that phase of their life, they will reward you 1,000-fold in terms of their longer-term employment and loyalty to the organisation.
I think does this person add value to my business? And the sense of, if I can actually have a service which is actually welcoming to my employers, then I won't have to keep going to actually re-employ people, retrain people. The retention is going to